Saturday.
Have you hugged your chipmunk today?
Betty White joins Alan Thicke for the all-new Animal Crack-Ups. Then, Ellen Burstyn's newest student is an ex-con.
Swedish meat, 6 months ago, I would have killed for one of these.
Well, take them. They're all yours.
Tomorrow.
Sunday on Disney. Celebrate the wizardry that has brought delight to all ages. Carol Burnett hosts Great Moments in Disney Animation.
I'm Bob Bruce, and on the next Twin Cities Live, Teenage Pregnancy. We'll talk with young girls who've been there. Friday morning at 9 on Channel 5.
I used to strike out as a cook.
And coach.
Hey, lighten up. Then I discovered Heinz 57 sauce. It's great on steak, but for burgers, I mix 3 tablespoons 57 sauce to a pound of ground beef, grill, and you got tangy, delicious hamburgers. Can't get that taste from any other sauce.
Great burger!
First hit all day. Heinz 57 sauce, more than a steak sauce, a heck of a lot more.
Good morning.
Day's looking new and bright.
It's Monday again.
You're gonna start it right.
Traffic's tied up.
'Cause there's Folgers for you. That's decaffeinated too. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mornings brighten with mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. Mountain-grown coffee beans have a more enticing aroma.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Decaffeinated.
KSTP, Minnesota's News Channel 5.
Good morning, I'm Bob Bruce, and welcome to Twin Cities Live. By the end of this year, more than 1 million teenage girls will become pregnant in America. 80% of those pregnancies will be unwanted or unintended. Who's responsible? Is it the parents for not openly talking about sex enough, early enough? Is it the school's responsibility to inform sexually active teens about birth control? Or should those teens simply say no? Our guest this morning, Dr. Saul Gordon, says that just saying no isn't enough, and that there are more appropriate ways to deal with teen sex. Stay with us as we talk with teen mothers and fathers and find out the reality of being a parent. That's next on Twin Cities Live. Good morning and welcome to Twin Cities Live. Shelley, I just want to start with you right immediately. It is probably the biggest nightmare for any teenage girl to hear the words, "You're pregnant." What was your first reaction to that?
Well, I cried, and then I thought, you know, things over, what I was going to do, what were my parents going to say, were they going to kick me out of the house, what was I going to do about school. I was 13, I had 4 years left of school. I didn't know how I was going to do it, not at all.
Who did you tell first?
A friend of mine. And we just, I don't know, we kind of discussed it.
Before you told the father?
Mm-hmm. I didn't tell him until I was 2.5 months pregnant.
Were you on birth control?
No. We just kind of, I don't know, played Russian roulette, I guess.
And unfortunately, the odds did not work out in your favor.
No, they didn't.
What did your parents say when you first told them?
Well, we all cried together, and then they just told me that they'd help me any way they could. And we, you know, I decided before I told anybody what I was going to do. And so it was kind of, I didn't have anybody to influence me. I decided to keep them and to raise them, so.
Lee, your reaction?
I wasn't as logical as Shelley. I went through denial right away.
Denying the fact that you were pregnant?
Yeah, just not thinking that it was just like a wrong reading on a home pregnancy test or...
How old were you at the time?
I was just barely 17. I had just turned 17. And I wasn't ready to face the fact that what had just become the greatest year was going, you know, going to go all wrong.
Was this your first experience?
No, it wasn't.
Had you talked about birth control with the father?
I had been taking a form of birth control, but not in a steady enough way for it to be effective the way it should have been.
You were on the pill then?
Yeah.
And didn't take it every day or the way it was prescribed?
I wasn't responsible enough to take that.
Did you feel, I don't know, I guess feel sort of lost? Did people rally around you, or did you feel suddenly all alone?
My boyfriend was there, and he was very supportive, and he helped me come to terms with what was going on, and I didn't tell anybody for quite a while, so I didn't have...
How long?
Probably about 4 months.
You told your parents before those 4 months?
No.
For 4 months you did not tell your parents?
Right.
How did you finally, after that period of time, eventually you would have to tell them?
Yeah.
But how did you first break the news to them?
I just started crying with my mom, and I had a bad reaction with her, and I didn't tell my dad for 2 months later. So...
How did your father react to all of this?
He found out when I went into premature labor, and I was in the hospital going through labor, and I called him and said, you have to come to the hospital. You know, there's something wrong, and he came. He was immediately very supportive of me. He knew that I was frightened.
Kathy, how old were you when you found out you were pregnant?
15.
Were you obviously shocked by this? I mean,
oh, I was devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go, what my life was going to be like with a child in it.
This was at 15?
Yes.
How old are you now?
17.
17? In those 2 years, how has your way of viewing life changed from before you were pregnant to now?
I have 3 times more responsibility, and I had to really mature. I had to go from being irresponsible, fly-by-night kid to home all the time and taking care of a child.
Did you talk about birth control with the father of your child?
With the father, no, I didn't. It was a one-time date thing.
So just one time, and it never come up? The subject of birth control. Did your parents ever talk to you about birth control or about sex, or did they have the proverbial birds and the bees talk that you always hear about? Did they sit down and talk with you?
Well, my parents did, and I had 3 older sisters, so they would hint around and say, are you having sex? No, not me. I would never admit to even dating a boy.
But that would be the end of the conversation.
Right.
Mary, what was your situation?
Well, I was 13, and I thought I was pregnant. My mother didn't want to believe it. No, Mary, no, you can't be pregnant. No, you're not pregnant. She went, and then finally one day I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me, you're pregnant. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I cried. While I was crying, she asked me, would you like me to tell your mother, or do you want to? I said, I don't. So she told my mom. She called her when my dad was coming to pick me up. My mom told me when I got home, she said, I haven't told your father yet, but I'll help you any way I can. Eventually, she told my father. He didn't speak to me right away. And then he finally told me he'd accept it. And I was worried, scared. Michael's father didn't want to accept it at first. During my last month of pregnancy, he finally came around and decided to accept him. Then I didn't want him to.
Did you talk about birth control with him?
I asked him one time. By this time it was too late. I was already pregnant and didn't know it. I asked him, I said, what would you do if I was pregnant? And he told me, he said, all I could do is accept it. And when the time came around for me to tell him, he didn't.
Ronnie, there are so many different agencies that deal with teenage mothers. There's so much focus on the mother that many times there's a stereotypical image of the young father as being sort of the villain in all this. That he got the girl pregnant, he got her into trouble, and then they run off.
Well, that's not true in my case. I take care of my son. When I found out that she was pregnant, I was happy about it, and I told my mother. She was happy about it because that's the way my mom is.
But it had to be frightening for you. How old were you when you found out?
15.
15 years old. You're obviously in school. No way to support a wife or
that was
family.
That was the first thing on my mind, was to get a job. So what I did was I went to Sumner Olson, it's in North Minneapolis. They helped me to the Chamber of Conference downtown Minneapolis, and they put me on a program with Minneapolis Technical Institute to become a nursing assistant. So that's
so you instantly decided you wanted to be involved, you wanted to stay in touch. And, okay.
Yeah.
Charles, in your case, was that, when you first found out, what was your reaction?
Well, somewhat I was scared, but in other terms I was kind of happy to think that something that I had made and was going to be mine was going to be there, so I can show affection and love too. But the first thing that was really on my mind was to get a job. And
I would think it'd be absolute panic.
Well, yeah, but I went through the same agency that he did too, and they found me a job afterwards. And then I was talking to the mother about it and stuff.
Andy, did you immediately want to be around your child, or did it take you a while for it to sink in?
Took a while.
It's one thing for the young girl, because her body is going to go through changes, and your body would not. I mean, did it take a while for it to sink in?
About 8 months.
Yeah, that's a while.
Yeah.
That's a while. What caused you to finally, change your way of thinking?
I don't know. Something inside me, I guess. I just accepted it. And
for all three of you, how did the parents of the girl respond to you?
Well, my girlfriend's parents, she wasn't too thrilled about it. And after she got to know me a little better and seeing that I was going to take care of my son, she thought, well, this might work out.
Charles, Andy, I would imagine that the parents would be not too happy to see you around the house.
Well, sort of at first. Well, I had known the girl. We were dating about 6 or 7 months before, so her parents had really gotten to know me, and afterwards they were kind of shocked at first, so I had stopped going over there for a little while and then started resorting, then they kind of got used to it and things.
Mary, you were shaking your head. That you kind of identified with that a little bit, or?
Well, whenever my mother, to this day, whenever she says something about Larry and says something about Michael, my dad kind of throws a dirty look around. So he still, he accepts me and my son.
But your parents do not accept him?
My mother does. My dad don't.
I've got many more questions, especially for the young gentleman, but I want to bring Dr. Saul Gordon in here. As I went through, especially talking to the young girls, and I also want to pose this question to the young gentleman, I asked each and every one, did you ever talk about birth control? Did it ever come up? Did the subject, with all the publicity surrounding sex education, birth control, Saul, it doesn't seem like it's registering with a lot of our young people because the teenage pregnancy rate continues to climb.
Well, that's the problem. First of all, there's very little sex education. You know, there's a myth that we have sex education. Most schools have courses in plumbing, what I call relentless pursuit of the fallopian tubes, you know. We're not dealing with the real issues. And by just saying no, you know, parents just saying no, schools just saying no, we don't deal with what the real issues are. The real issues are that girls and boys are dating, they're relating to each other, they're in love, they care about each other, and they don't raise this question. We haven't prepared them. You know, parents should educate children when they're 3 and 4 and 5 and continue to educate them. Schools should start at 5 and 6, and we don't do that. We just push them into, you know, sexual behavior. A lot of people confuse sex with love, you know.
Was that your case? Did that happen with you, confusing sex for love?
Let me just tell you one thing, that maybe these young men are exceptional, but I can tell you they're very unusual. 90% of all boys who make teenage girls pregnant abandon them. About 70 to 80% of girls who have babies will never marry, will live on welfare. I'm not saying any of these will, because, you know, when you get a couple of few women to come out and present themselves, and they have supportive parents, it's a little different. But we're talking in general. Half the people in prison today were born to teenage mothers. I mean, it's a devastation. And what you get from these people is, it was not intended. They did not want to get pregnant. But we have to say, once a child is born, we have to do whatever we can to help the child and be nice to the child.
But let me take a break. Ronnie, I'll give you a chance to respond. When we come back, I would like to get your impressions on the statistics that are very frightening. Like 4 out of 5 teenage mothers, life for them winds up being dropping out of school and winding up on welfare. I mean, those are staggering statistics. And I'd like to ask you if you think you're going to become part of those statistics when we come back.
Now there's a new lilt that makes silky body easier. A new lilt that makes soft waves easier. A new lilt that makes the difference easier. It's new lilt with built-in conditioners. Now perming and conditioning with no extra steps. For long-lasting, easy care hair. Go ahead. New lilt with conditioners makes the difference even easier.
So, she think it was worth a 2,000-mile trip to visit her first grandchild?
Are you kidding? Uh-oh. I'll check on him. No, Mother, I'll get him. Oh, Karen, he's wet. Sleeper, the sheet.
If you could buy a thin diaper that dramatically cut leakage, even overnight, wouldn't you try it? This is it. New Love's Deluxe. Now with the Night Guard system. No diaper has ever worked like this. If baby only wet once during the night, almost any thin diaper would do. But only Love's new Night Guard system quickly distributes wetness throughout the padding. So when baby wets again, other diapers can leak, but Love's can still absorb without leaking.
Everything's dry as a bone. That diaper you found really worked. Yeah. You know, Mom, I just want him to have the best of everything all the time. I know.
You've noticed it before. Something missing in your margarine. Taste, flavor, richness. Now Land O'Lakes has found what you've been missing. The taste of sweet cream. In new Land O'Lakes bread with sweet cream. Just enough sweet cream to make it sweet. Creamy, buttery, yet it has almost no cholesterol. New Land O'Lakes bread with sweet cream. The taste you've been missing.
Since the beginning of time, free advice is one resource that has never been in short supply. But getting good advice is sometimes just the luck of the draw. Over 40 years ago, the Chicago Sun-Times took note of that fact, that there was a definite need for good advice. So a lady by the name of Ruth Crowley, under the pen name of Ann Landers, started the column which has answered questions for thousands and thousands of readers over many years. Well, Twin Cities Live is going to offer you a chance, the opportunity to have some of your questions answered on our Tuesday, July 18th show when we meet the 2 journalists who have taken over the Ann Landers column. Send your questions on a postcard to Twin Cities Live, 3415 University Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55114. Now, that's only if you can't join our audience. If you can come down and be live in our studio audience, free tickets, you can come face-to-face with Diane Crowley and Jeff Zaslow, who will give you some sound advice for your questions on anything you can imagine. So the number to call for free tickets and free advice, 641-1298. Ronnie, you wanted to make a comment concerning the statistics that we were talking about, that, you know, teenage mothers winding up on welfare, And 90%, I believe, Dr. Gordon, you said, of young teenage boys abandon the girls that they get pregnant.
Yeah, I want to say something to the doctor about when you was mentioning that teenage fathers leave the baby, abandon the baby. Is that this year or years past, 87 or what?
Forever, the way it's been for teenagers.
Do you feel, Ronnie, it's changing?
Yeah, I feel it's
It may be changing a little bit, but there's no evidence that it is. You folks are exceptional, I can tell you that.
Then would Andy be very much the exception to the rule, because Andy, you decided to get married.
Yeah. That's very unusual. But, you know, all these folks are
I'm thinking
unusual.
about getting married also.
That's okay. More power to you. All I can tell you is that I hope that you'll decide to have 1 or 2 children, and that your children will be educated so that they don't do the same.
Right.
So that when at 3 and at 4 and at 5, when they ask you questions, you'll answer them. You'll just say, you won't say, when did you grow up? When did you get married? Or you won't, you won't say, where did you get questions like that, you know? You'll answer them. You'll use the correct terminology. You won't use wee-wee and pee-pee.
So
and
what
caca.
you're saying is...
You'll use penis, vulva, vagina, and you'll be honest and open about it.
Let me ask the young ladies. I mean, this has happened to you. There's no way you can retrace your steps. How are you going to talk to your, and I believe 3 of you have sons. Kathy, is your son or daughter?
Daughter.
A daughter. Okay. Now, let's start with the son. What are you going to tell your son? Are you going to tell him that it's also his responsibility for birth control? I mean, how are you going to approach this with your children? Shelley?
Well, it's just as much his responsibility as it would be his girlfriend's. I hope that if they were going to have sex, that they'd be at least open enough to talk about it before they had it, and that he'd realize that it's just as much his responsibility.
You know,
any
let
of
me
you
just say
gentlemen?
one thing.
Go ahead.
Talking about it, that's the key. Because I hear so many girls say, oh, it's so romantic just to let it happen. Well, I have news for you. It's not romantic just to let it happen. It's stupid just to let it happen. And people say, oh, I want it to be spontaneous. Well, I've never heard of a spontaneous boy. He's planning and organizing this thing for years.
Gentlemen, you want to respond to that?
No, it's true.
Did any of you think of birth control before you had sex?
My girlfriend, she was using birth control, but she said that it started making her sick, and she stopped using it. And
Charles, what about you and Andy?
Well, we never started, but until it was too late. She was like 2 months into it, and she didn't know about it. It was like she didn't know until the 3rd month.
Who do you all think's responsible?
I think both parents are responsible.
You think the parents are, Mary?
Well, no, not. It's not really. Some parents don't feel that they don't need to talk to their children about it. Some parents don't, because some parents feel that the school should teach them. It's not really. I could understand if your child was totally dumb. These days, children aren't dumb. You go to school 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and they're talking about sex. And then
but
again,
if they aren't dumb and they're already talking about sex in the 5th and 6th grade, Dr. Gordon, why are teenagers?
They're not talking about contraception. You see on the soap operas, they're having one affair after another and hopping into bed. Nobody ever talks about contraception. You listen to rock music, it says, do it, do it, do it now. Where is contraception? Where is birth control? I mean, my message is quite clearly, listen, I don't think teenagers should have sex. I mean, I'm pretty conservative. But I say, listen, if you're going to have sex anyway, be sure to be on the pill. And if you're not on the pill, use foam and be sure to put it in before you have sex. And if the boy can't afford 50 cents per condom, he's too cheap to be allowed in.
Now, you say all those things, but this is a lot more controversial. It's very easy to say those things, but there are many people, their religious beliefs or whatever. How do you feel about that, some of the things that he said? I mean, do you agree with him 100%?
Oh, I agree with him. I'm wondering who's supporting these babies.
the guys have jobs, but it's very expensive supporting children with diapers and clothing. And, well, do most of them live at home?
Who supports the babies and where do they live?
I live at home. My parents support me and my child completely. They say that high school and mothering is a more important job than a job at Burger King, and so they will take on the responsibility.
It's got to be difficult. Lee, what?
I am supporting myself and my son totally, and I have been for about the last year.
My parents have supported me from day one. If I do get a job, the job is for my spending money. I always have a babysitter. I know that. And we always have, me and Michael are best friends, and they support me and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Michael knows that they'll be there for us, and I'll be there for him.
I want to get back to what you said, Saul, about, a young man should get a condom, birth control should be in the schools, there should be a lot of sex education, that sort of thing. These are very, very controversial issues, and with the great resurgence of religion in this country and conservatism, don't you see us, perhaps, this country moving the opposite direction?
Well, every survey that has ever been done reveals that 83 to 84% of the American public favors sex education in the school, including talking about birth control. We have a few extremists who bamboozle the schools, and we're at fault. You see, there could be 3 or 4 extremists, know-nothings, who go into the schools and they shout and they scream and they make a big hoo-ha, and they don't represent the public, they represent themselves and a few groups. The American public in every state of the union favors sex education in the schools, and that's what we need.
Where would you please? Okay, go ahead.
Has any of the guys thought about getting married?
Yeah, Andy's married. You thought about it, Ronnie or Charles?
Yeah, I thought about getting married. I still am thinking about it, and eventually I will get married.
Will we ever be able to get across to our young people, they say just say no to drugs, or just say no to sex, but are you ever going to be able to get that across?
No, because, we're playing games. Less than 10% of couples are both virgins on their wedding night. Less than 10%. Who are we talking to? We're talking in the wilderness. If we have to give the double message, the single message is bankrupt. It's bankrupt with drugs, with alcohol. We have to say, listen, if you're going to drive, no alcohol, We have to give 2 messages. If you're going to have sex anyway, use birth control. Those are the messages. The double message is a meaningful message. And we have to educate parents. I've written this book, Raising a Child Conservatively in a Sexually Permissive World. We provide rehearsal behavior for parents. Parents should be the sex educators of their own children. That's the message I have for you. As parents, you educate your children. At 2 and at 3, talk to them. And don't operate on the assumption that they're too young to learn. Knowledge is not harmful. You know what's harmful? Ignorance is harmful. Unresolved curiosity is harmful, but not knowledge.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
3 years old. That's too
That's
young.
the time to say, hey, that's your penis. Yeah,
I can understand.
Yeah, but there's a difference between...
You don't tell them everything.
Dr. Gordon, wait a minute. There's a difference between telling them about their body parts and filling them in on what a relationship is, what making love is all about, and the responsibilities that can befall these children if they do become...
That's why sex education is a lifelong experience. You start at 3 and at 4 and at 5 and at 7, at 9, at 10. You keep on developing. You tell them more and more and more and more and more.
Let me break here. When I come back, I want to ask the young people, were you surprised at the suddenness how your future totally turned just like that, and what you really see your future to be? What you think it's going to be like when you're 25 years old, now that you're a mom at such an early age and a dad at such an early age. When we continue in just a moment.
Walk through the door for a room full of love. In the baby's room. Come to the baby's room, where you can choose from over 60 cribs on display. Thousands in stock for immediate delivery. The baby's room store-wide crib sale can save you up to 40% on all nursery furniture. Lay away your selection for as long as you like. Shop now during the baby's room store-wide crib sale and save. Isn't your baby worth it?
There's a room full of love at the Baby's Room.
At the Baby's Room, 2900 Rice Street, St. Paul.
Now, Great Clips for Hair presents The Princess.
With my looks and my money, why would I go to a place that charges so little for a haircut? Okay, first, they do great haircuts. Second, I lied about my money.
Great Clips for Hair, $8. Great perms and stylings, too. There's a Great Clip shop right nearby. No appointment needed.
The big one's back, the one you've waited for. 1.9% financing or rebates to $700. And here at Merritt Chevrolet, the 88s are on the way, and with over 300 available, the 87s have got to go. They're all priced to move. And today, new Cavaliers, $600 cash back or finance as low as 1.9. New Celebrity, $700 cash back or 1.9 financing. 1.9 financing, rebates to $700. See us today, 1.9 at Merritt Chevrolet, I-94 and Century Avenue, across from 3M in St. Paul.
I was hot on Snack Pack's trail. It was disguised in a plastic pack. It needed no refrigeration. You could take it anywhere. I took it home. My partner peeled back the easy open top. It was easier. He discovered the smooth, creamy taste. I detected it was made fresh with milk. It was Snack Pack pudding, all right. The case of the easy open pack was closed.
I think we should reopen it, Mom.
Those are the kind of jobs that people say, well, you know, you got to have somebody do it. Somebody has to do it. A high-rise window washer, a mortician, garbage collector. They're the kind of jobs where people sometimes forget that there's a human being at the other end of that job. It's taking care of some things that we don't want to do. The person who handles your complaints, the airport ticket agent, the repossessor. We'll meet those people who, in their jobs, day in and day out, firsthand, have to do jobs that we don't want to do ourselves. If you think that you're taking for granted in your job and that people don't appreciate what you do, Wednesday, August 19th is the day to come down and participate in our studio audience. If there is anything you always wanted to tell people about what you do to make them understand, August 19th is your chance. And the number to call is 641-1298. Welcome back to Twin Cities Live. Now, you're Kathy's parents?
Yes, yes.
Let me ask you how you feel about what Dr. Gordon's saying, about what some of the young people are saying in this situation, because you're in the midst of it. Do you agree with some of the things that he says?
I agree with everything he says. People should know. Most adults probably don't even know. You know, what we want our kids to know today, most adults probably don't know it themselves. So how can they teach it?
When you first found out from your daughter, I'm sure that for most parents there would be a feeling like, you know, maybe there could have been something I could have done to prevent this. Did you?
Definitely, definitely. I felt like I could have given her some more tools to cope with what she'd gone through. But we've tried to make the best of the situation.
And it can be difficult for a family to stay together in the midst of that.
Well, when you get a little one like this that's such a doll, it makes it a lot easier.
Did any of your parents, how did they, beyond just an initial shock, do you feel if your parents would have talked to you more about sex, would have filled you in a little more, that all of this would have been prevented?
No.
See, that's frightening.
No.
That is frightening.
You see, it's not just one thing. You see, it's not. We can't say who's responsible. And the parents have a role. The schools have a role. TV has a role. I mean, rock music has a role. We all. It's very complicated. But nevertheless, for example, it's a good idea to have some rehearsal behavior. For example, a line that boys use, darling. What's the universal line? If you really love me, you'll have sex with me, right? Well, you know, look how powerful that is. Well, why can't the girl say, listen, honey, I really love you, but do you have a condom? Well, the boy might respond by saying, oh, darling, I get no feelings out of a condom. She must have immediately respond by saying, all the other boys I know get plenty of feelings out of a condom. What's the matter with you?
It seems that what you're saying, it seems like we're going in a vicious circle here, because parents are going to say to themselves, and there are very few parents that are going to go to their children and say, now, if you're going to have sex, please go out and get, condoms, or please be on the birth control pill. Parents are not going to say that.
If parents are not going to say it, then they're stupid, in my opinion. They had better say it, because last year we had 1,300,000 pregnancies, 100,000 more than the year before, and to operate on the assumption that it will just say no and everybody will be happy. Well, it doesn't work that way. We can't prevent all pregnancies. There's no reason to believe, but we certainly should reduce them by 50 to 60,
What
70%.
about the old contention, and it has been around for ages, is that the more, and I want to hear what the young people say about this, that the more they tell you about sex, the more you're going to want to go out and have it. Is that true?
No, it's not. The way I see it is plain and simple. No, kids these days don't listen. I didn't listen. I didn't care. After all, it won't happen to me. It didn't happen to me, you know?
What 13-year-old's going to listen to their parents?
No one cares.
Yeah.
It won't happen
let's
to
say
us.
this.
That's
What's
just the
the
way
lesson?
everybody
You see,
sees it.
We're not blaming any of these young people. I mean, they made a mistake, and they acknowledge it. What's the lesson from this mistake? What message do you give to other 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds? Are you going to say, well, if it happened to me, it could just happen to everybody?
I don't know.
care.
I think at your age, I don't know if you're trying to find a message. Maybe you're just trying to
You're
exist.
not responsible enough at a young age. Me, I was on it, but I didn't take it seriously enough, for it to be effective.
Well, my name is Dana, and I'm 3 months pregnant, and my mom told me about birth control, but I felt like I didn't have to get on it. When you were pregnant, did you feel pressured by everybody, well, you should have used birth control and all that? Did you feel it?
No, I didn't.
Why didn't you use the birth control if you knew about it?
Because I felt that if I feel that I'm old enough to be out there doing what I was doing, then maybe I'm old enough to take care of my child.
But how old are you?
I'm 14.
It's not your age.
It doesn't matter how old you are. It's how you are with yourself and with your child and your boyfriend. If you can take care of it, fine.
But how are you going to, at 14, how are you going to take care of a child? How are you going to make enough money? How are you going to become employed when you're not even legal age?
I know. I have a job. I have a work permit. My boyfriend's got a job, and my mom's giving me support, and she knows about it. And we've got half of it taken care of already.
What's your message to other 13 and 14-year-olds? Do you know, wait a minute, when you know what I have said, you're an unusual exception, you see. But 90% of the boys abandon, most of the girls will never marry, most of them, I'm talking about 70 or 80% of them will never marry, will always be on welfare, will live pretty miserably. The fact that you're lucky and you're an unusual person, don't you have a message to say to other people that says, listen, hey, this thing is not easy. It's not good for everybody. What responsibility do you have?
You're comfortable with it, aren't you?
Yes, I'm comfortable with it.
I'm not talking about you.
I know you're not talking about me. But I will tell this person, if you're old enough to be out there doing what you're doing and you can stay out all night long, then maybe you're able to take care of your child. Maybe you can do it on your own. You don't always need your parents. Your parents are never going to be there for you forever. So they can do it on their own. And if they can't, then maybe they should get help from someone else.
But if they're responsible enough to have a baby, that's the point. Why can't you be responsible enough to use birth control effectively to prevent something?
It's your choice to use it.
Right.
And some people's religions say, oh, don't use it. Like Catholics, I think, isn't that true?
But do you really feel, and I know, we don't want to go into any particular,
Well, don't
really
go into
feel,
that because Catholics use birth control to the same extent as everybody else.
Yeah. Do you really feel that as a 14-year-old, you're mature enough to raise a child? I mean, did you plan this? I mean, before you became pregnant, you say, I'm 14, I'm mature, I want to have a child in my life.
Yes. I will admit, yes. Yes, I did. I wanted a child.
You know what?
Now, let me ask the young ladies up here who are dealing with this.
I want to tell you something.
And after becoming,
I have to tell you something that's medically very important, that the chances of a 13 or 14-year-old having a healthy, normal baby is a third if you wait until 16, 17. The chances of a low birth weight are 10 times greater. The chances of a mentally retarded child are 5 to 10 times greater. So don't be so sanctimonious about this thing. Maybe you'll be lucky and you'll be happy, but it's not good physically for 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds to have babies. And we might as well say that right up in front.
Not to mention the fact that, you know, you, four of you and the three gentlemen, you've lived this for a while. It's not easy, is it?
You're never ready until the day something new happens. My daughter, she'll be off running around and something new will come up and I'll go, how do I handle this? I thought I was mature enough to do it on my own, but some nights I sit down and cry and say, is this really what I want to do with my life?
I am 19 right now, and I still have a hard time sometimes dealing with my friends call, they want to go out there just getting into college. I'm working full-time, and sorry, I can't go out. You know, I have to stay on babysitter, I have to watch the budget. I'm not ready at my age, and my body at 17 wasn't physically able because I had so many early deliveries and problems with bed rest, medication constantly, you know, that it's difficult on a body, too.
Well, from a,
I agree.
definitely. From a father's point of view, I feel that I'm ready to be a good father. You know, it's I got a full-time job, making good money. I feel that I'm a pretty good father.
But is any 15 or 16-year-old really ready to be a parent?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
I've got a question for the guys. Okay, I'm 18 years old. I have a 16-month-old daughter, which was born 3 months premature, which made everything last a little longer with raising her and everything like that. I mean, she doesn't even walk right now. It was really hard for me and my girlfriend sometimes, and I was wondering, where did you guys get support? Yeah, because I can't find support from hardly anybody.
Well, like I said, and the gentleman right here, we was involved in a program, North Minneapolis, Sumner Olson. I think they have a couple of programs for young teenage fathers and mothers, such as a Chamber of Conference downtown Minneapolis.
This would be something new, wouldn't it be, Dr. Gordon? I mean, this is something that's just now starting to happen as far as the fathers of the...
Yeah. I'm talking for...
Haven't they been relatively forgotten?
Yes, but part of it is because almost all of them abandon the girls. I mean, that's a plain fact. And the fact that there's a program to help fathers, I think it's wonderful. And you ought to connect up with these guys and get the information so that you can get some support as well.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Picture of your youngster there, Andy. What's the future of this whole situation? I mean, you could sit here and talk about this problem for ages and never really stamp out, well, here's what we got to do. What's the future? Is there a brighter future for our teenagers, Dr. Gordon?
No, there isn't. These people are wonderful exceptions. They're inspiration. They made a mistake, and they're trying to turn it into a lesson. They're not going to have 3, 4, 5, 6 babies, unmarried, and so on. But I can tell you that the majority of teenagers who have babies, especially those who have more than one, will remain the rest of their lives on welfare. Their children at 12 and 13, 14 will also get pregnant or impregnate others. I gave the data that half the people in prison today were born to teenage mothers. You won't find it from this group. You won't find it from a couple of people in the audience, because they are the exceptions. And it's this group that ought to be an inspiration. And I wish you would tell the television audience about what it's like, and so maybe people will give it some second thoughts.
Well, I was basically speaking to the girl who said she wanted to have a baby. I wanted to have a baby once upon a time. I thought it'd be just great. There have been times. My son is now 3 years old. What do I hear? Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, can I have that? No, Mommy, I'll do what I want. Shut up. Get away from me. You know? I mean, he'll tell you that. He don't care. And when he's little, when he was younger, you know, up all night crying, his stomach hurts, you don't know what's going on, you know. You can't shut him up.
I can relate
There
to
have been
Mary
times
so well.
when I sat down And I sat there and cried with my son, and my mom came in and she'll take him, you know, and just...
Well, you know, these are, Doctor, these are normal feelings of a mother, but the big difference is that the age.
It's harder to handle it at 12 and at 13 and 15. Much easier if you're married, you have, you're 22, you've already found something that was important for you in career-wise. It's a big difference.
Dr. Saul, I found out very late in life that I was illegitimate. I remembered through therapy that there were secrets, and having been raised Catholic, that sex was only to be in marriage. And I have a concern about how the young people deal with their shame. I'm still experiencing shame, having found out years later that I was illegitimate, and I had to learn to forgive. And I've never been able to get my mother to discuss that with me, and I have to continue to forgive her. And
I'll say, let me say something first and then make comment. I don't think there's such a thing as an illegitimate child. I just totally out of the question. Every child is a child. Every child's precious. Every child it needs to be wanted and cared for and loved. It doesn't matter it shouldn't matter. And you folks wanted to say something.
I have no shame. I have a son, and I love him regardless of what anybody thinks.
Right.
Kathy, go ahead.
I held a lot of shame for at least a year from the time I got pregnant. I was so ashamed to even go out of the house. You know, it was me. I was pregnant, you know, and you just have to learn.
You were the fallen, you know, the woman, the girl, the bad girl. I mean, that label.
Yeah, you're going to get into
I got labeled
in the slums for the rest of your life.
How did your peers, did they reject you in any kind of way, or did they
I had
stop
one friend that when I first thought I was pregnant, I would try and talk to her, and she said, "Don't talk to me about you being pregnant until you know for sure." And I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell my parents.
Okay, I understand that all of you talked with your boyfriends and thought about birth control, but in the school, did the school ever tell you, here's where you can go, here's a phone number? I never learned that in school whatsoever. Like, here's where you can go, or if you have any questions, call this number. You know, the teachers never even offered anything except for, this is what you can do. And then they were all quiet about it.
They left it.
Yeah.
At our school, we've got phone numbers written up on a little piece of paper on the wall. You know, you see it, but you don't know what the name of that clinic is for. You know, they don't tell you, okay, if you want to get on birth control, go and grab one of them numbers and call. You know, they don't tell you that.
My mom's always saying, don't do it, you know, don't do it. Well, why don't they just tell you, you know, why not to do it? Instead of just
they
telling
don't
you not
explain
to.
the relationship part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense not to do, you know, for them to tell you not to do it, but can't they just tell you why not to do it? And, you know, schools help a lot, too.
And the consequences, Dr. Gordon, of having a child.
That's right. And also, you see, even something about love is important. You know, we don't talk about love. People confuse sex with love. You know, you could be sexually attracted to someone you can't even have a conversation with. You can be sexually attracted to parts of people. I mean, we have to help people understand what love is all about.
I have 2 teenagers, and they don't listen to me about little things. I think they'd have a real hard time listening to me about something big. And research seems to bear that out, that teenagers know how to prevent it, but they don't use it. They don't think it can happen to them. How can we get our teenagers to listen to us as parents?
Try. I mean, wouldn't you feel...
Repeat it.
Yeah. Wouldn't you feel much
just
worse
talk about it constantly.
if you didn't say anything at all?
You have to do the best you can, but also the message that we have as professionals is you have to start at early, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't tell them everything, but you have to be what we call an askable parent. If you're an askable parent, your children will ask you questions at 4, at 5, at 6, at 7, and tell them. It's amazing. We've reached the point where mothers are beginning to tell their children about menstruation.
Did you ever think that you would become pregnant?
No. Happens to the other
exactly
girl.
what she's talking about.
It's still, but we have to talk about it. We have to say, that almost everybody thinks it won't happen to them. And we can say in advance that if you don't think it's going to happen to you, it will. I might just want to make this one comment. Please, mothers, you're talking to your girls about menstruation. Please talk to the boys about wet dreams and about masturbation. Please talk to them, because they get confused and upset and unsure about it. Almost no parent will talk to their children, to their boy children, about wet dreams. Why not?
Hi. I think that when teenagers, or 13 and 14, they start dating, when they start they start dating, then I don't know how to put this.
Making out.
Yeah, they go into it knowing what they got, when they have to stop. Then all of a sudden they get to that part and it doesn't stop. They can't stop.
A moment of passion.
Yeah. Well, listen,
and they can't stop.
Let me tell you about this. This is the most important message that I have for this whole evening. There's a myth in this society that says that once a boy starts, he can't stop. That is simply a lie. Some boy made it up.
It's a lie.
I tell you.
What'd you say, Ronnie?
I said it's a lie. Yeah.
It's a total lie. You imagine a scene. A girl has a boy says to the girlfriend, "Listen, honey, let's go to my house. We can fool around." She says she's not ready for sex yet. Okay? He says, "Don't worry." Whenever anybody says not to worry, I say worry.
Then you got problems.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
You've read countless news stories and seen the rioting and oppression for yourself on television. But for many people, the problems in South Africa are nothing more than headlines, nothing more than other people's problems in a land far away. On the next Oprah Winfrey Show, the story of South Africa comes to life with the story of a man who grew up in the ghettos there and survived. We'll talk about it on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
Friday afternoon at 4 on Channel 5.
Why make 2 trips? And why wait? At LensCrafters, you can have quality eyeglasses in about an hour. Even tough prescriptions like trifocals and bifocals. Listen.
I've gotten bifocals, and I've gotten less than an hour.
Less than 45 minutes.
50 to 55 minutes.
It was fast, but it wasn't rushed.
Why make 2 trips?
LensCrafters. Quality eyeglasses in about an hour. Burnsville Center, Southdale Center, and Lomans Plaza, Roseville.
Darling, your mama said it'd be days like this.
But every day?
Good thing you've got Dixie Living Wear.
You know it.
Yes, I do. Living Wear goes from the microwave
straight to the table.
Don't try that with a foam plate.
Dad, can you cut this?
On Living Wear you can, sweetheart. And the plastic coating means
it won't soak through.
Mm-hmm. And you used to use Living Wear just for picnics.
Is this your idea of a picnic?
Every day's easier, honey, with affordable Dixie Living Wear.
You said it.
Cacciatore, a la King, Tetrazzini, Amandine, Kiev. Classic meals, the lighter, leaner, more convenient dishes we're eating today, all made with white meat. But the white meat these classics are made with isn't chicken or fish. It's pork. Pork, the other white meat.
We all know how difficult it is to deal with death as an adult. It's one of those few sensitive subjects that people just do not want to talk about. They're very hesitant. Still, as an adult, we try to have some understanding of it. But imagine death through the eyes of a child. What do they think about it? What can they understand at such an early age? On Thursday, August 20th, we'll meet children who have lost a parent through death. Now, they're talking about it, and they're going to tell us what they see, how they tried to cope with this and understand it. We'll hear from adults whose parents' early death silently affected their entire lives. So much so that they are now, years later, just now discussing it. If you've lost a parent or a family member through death, or know of someone who has, I hope you'll come down and join me and talk about this very important topic on how death affects children, how they see it.
A rabbit's foot carried for luck, a pinch of salt tossed over the shoulder, a sense of foreboding at the sight of a black cat. Are they harmless superstitions or reminders of a darker time when the world was young? Nature seemed all-powerful. and humble charms were man's best protection against unknown evil. Enter the Enchanted World, a spellbinding series from Time Life Books that probes the forgotten origins of the world's strangest curiosities. In each lavishly illustrated volume, you'll move through storybook lands where the original endings to the tales of childhood weren't always happy ones. The Enchanted World takes you back to a time when restless apparitions drifted through darkened hallways.
Some ghosts were nothing more than cold spots on floors or shadows in corners. Others took human form.
A time when men who called themselves sorcerers used the tarot to prophesy the future.
The hanged man dangling from a gallows was a sign of life in suspension, while the death card indicated change.
And a time when malevolent creatures were thought to stalk the night in search of hapless victims.
Unwise was the wayfarer who journeyed by night, for in the shadows, greedy eyes glittered, claws curled, teeth clicked.
Begin your journey through the Enchanted World with Wizards and Witches. Examine it free for 10 days. If you keep it, other volumes will follow, one about every other month. Spells and bindings, ghosts and water spirits. So enter the Enchanted World, where anything is possible, and a little luck never hurts.
To examine Wizards and Witches, free for 10 days, just call 1-800-842-4400. Keep it and pay just $14.99 plus shipping and handling. Buy only the books you like. Cancel at any time. So act now. Call 1-800-842-4400. That's 1-800-842-4400.
If you're a teenager and you think you might be in trouble, here's a number you can call. Your emergency service, 379-6363, 379-6363. Dr. Gordon, I want you to go back to that point about young men.
Well, imagine the scene. The boy says, listen, let's make out that we won't have any sex. He tells her not to worry. Well, they're making out. They're having a good time. They're enjoying each other. Finally, he says to her, oh, my God, it's too late. I can't stop. I'm coming in. All she has to say, I think I hear your mother.
Hotel accommodations and dining provided by the Radisson University Hotel on the U of M East Bank campus, featuring the Meadows Restaurant, which offers fresh seafood, fowl, and a selection of grilled specialties. Henderson chauffeured Cadillacs provide limousine transportation for the guests of Twin Cities Live. Henderson's offers the largest selection of color, style, and service in the 5-state area. Bob Bruce's wardrobe is provided by Justers. Justers, a tradition of fine clothing for men and women. Hair and makeup provided by Take 5, 504 North 1st Avenue in the Butler Building.
I want to thank my guests for being with us today, and good luck to all of you in the future. One thing we didn't touch on much, putting your child up for adoption. Was that ever an option for you, adoption or abortion?
No.
What are the statistics on that, Doctor?
Well, currently about 93% of the young teenagers keep their children. You know, about 20 years ago, it used to be about 70 to 80% would give them up for adoption. The parents are now...
It's brand